Welcome to the Small Giants Fishbowl. This topic is how to do recognition right and for free. Join Lara Morrow of Stericycle, leading a discussion on the power of recognition, strategies for using it on all levels, and how to do it for little or no cost. Okay, here we go.
Great, thanks y'all. And I'm watching the chat here, and we have some new people, and that's wonderful. So the one thing that I want to remind everybody is that the purpose of Small Giants is to be able to share best practices and ideas. And I am by all means not a recognition expert. I've been in the field a long time, but I love to hear the ideas from everybody else. So like Hamza said, please speak up, ask questions. Let's make this about a dialogue, and we'll have time for questions at the end. We'll also be sending out the PowerPoint that I'll refer back and forth to every once in a while when I need a visual. And I have a lisp, so I promise I'm not drinking. So you can just make fun of my lisp. All right, so what we're going to talk a little bit about today is recognition, and this is kind of an anomaly. You can never know what type of recognition somebody wants. So we're going to talk today about how to recognize people, what to look for, how to tie it into goals and core values and things of that nature. One of the most important pieces, though, is how to know your employees and their recognition style, and I'll give you some tools for that. Then I'll talk a little bit about some of the recognition processes I've been a part of in the past 20 years or 17 years or so working for Paul Spiegelman with Small Giants, what's worked and what hasn't. And then we can talk a little bit about peer-to-peer recognition. So let's carry on. I'm going to glance at my notes every once in a while. So one of the things we all think about, or sometimes we think about, is when we want to recognize somebody. I know sometimes I immediately go to, what can I give them? What can I give them? Can I give them money? Can I give them a bonus check? Can I give them gift cards? And although sometimes that's appropriate and sometimes it works, the majority of the time, it doesn't work. And why? If you start to give things constantly, those things that you give out, they become the norm. They start to be normal. Oh, well, I'm getting a bonus for this, or I'm getting a bonus for that. If you take it away, you're taking away something normal. But if you continue to give things, pretty soon you have to up your game. You have to give more. And you have to make it better, and it's got to be more expensive, things of that nature. So you have to figure out how to talk to people in a way that's going to personally move and motivate them. So I've been a part of administering employee opinion surveys for 20 years, partially at Paul's company, which was a small 400 people healthcare call center. And then most recently, over the past 3 years, at a global 25,000 employee company, which I can tell you right now is way far from Small Giant. And the thing that we learn the most that people want, that comes year over year, no matter what company I'm administering a survey for, they want to be included. They want to be in the know. They want to feel important. They want autonomy, flexibility. They want to be heard, their project ideas or whatever it is listened to. And way down in the line, benefits and money. It's just very interesting to me every single time, no matter where I work and no matter what level of team member I'm talking about, benefits and money come way down the line. So how can we as leaders make sure that we are including people in the things that are the most important to them, and how do we get to know really what those are? So one of the things I want to toggle over, I want to kind of show you guys and we will send out this, hold on, I'm used to presentations. We'll send out this presentation to you so you can have this. And if you look at the notes section, I usually type what I'm going to say verbatim so you can go back and look at it. So let's think about this scenario as we go through the next 40 minutes. I'm going to talk for about 40 minutes, and then we'll have a good 20 minutes to discuss. And if I'm saying something that really hits home, jump in and tell us about your experience. But let's look at this scenario. You worked late. on an RFP for a potentially huge client. You had a busy day and it was kind of last minute. You're exhausted. You hand it over to your assistant, Casey, for the next day's shipping as you walk out the door and you go home. The next day you come in and you discover that while packing up the proposal, she noticed that you had a huge typo in the pricing model, and it would have caused the company to lose a lot of money or lose some brand reputation. So she stayed late to fix it and sent out a correct copy. So when we come in the next day and we find out, it kind of takes us aback because, we made a mistake and we feel terrible about it. But what do we typically say to somebody in this scenario? Does anybody want to take a guess? Like, what do you typically say to somebody? I'll guess for you. We typically say, or we typically do, this is Casey, great job, Casey, thanks, or thanks for all you do. And although that might be helpful at the moment, it's not necessarily going to be something that's meaningful to her and sticks around with her in the long run. So one of the things that I really want to do as we go through today is to think about how we can make this better. So at the end, we're going to revisit Casey, and with all the skills that we've kind of talked about, we're going to try to make this better and more meaningful. So one of the things that I had to teach myself to do, because we are so busy and we're doing a million things at once, is looking for the opportunities to recognize. It's not like we don't want to recognize our people. We just need that time. We need to know exactly what we need to recognize. So once we start to notice these and put them on our calendar, things of that nature, we're going to make this a habit. So these are just a few of the things that can be recognized, and I know you guys know what these are. It could be a huge sales opportunity or anything of that nature, but they're there every day. We don't want to overkill, so we don't want to recognize people for doing, the basics of their job. But when they stand out and above and beyond the rest, we want to make sure that we can emphasize that. So this is the skill that I've honed in on for probably the past 20 years. Know your employees. This form is in our new hire paperwork, and Ashton will send that out to everybody, but it's a basic recognition profile. We give this to them after they've been hired. We're not asking them what their family dynamic looks like or anything during the hiring process, but we want to be able to track what's their hobbies and special interests, what things they enjoy doing, and then at the bottom, you can't really see here, but they check off what kind of recognition style they prefer. And this is just the beginning. So I keep these in an accordion file, and I use this constantly. And one time we had this IT guy, big burly IT guy that we wanted to do something for. He'd been working on a project for months and months at night, and we thought immediately, let's send him to a sports event, or that's immediately where your mind goes. So I pulled up his recognition profile, and on the question at the bottom of the page where it says, if you had the day off on the company and we sent you somewhere, what would you want it to be? And his said he'd want to go to the spa. And I about fell out of my chair because I would never guess that. And we would have gotten it completely wrong. So we sent him to the spa, and he was so excited and moved about that. So this is something that we keep and I use. I also use this for letting Paul, my boss, know when somebody's having a wedding anniversary, when they're having a birthday. Is their daughter going off to college in August and they're extremely sad and upset but excited? All those things that he wants to recognize, and I'll tell you how he does that in just a second. Now, this is my absolute favorite tool in the world. And if you've heard of the 5 love languages, you might think I'm crazy, but I found this book. It's actually a book about relationships with couples. And I got really involved in knowing and understanding what these languages are. And then they came out with a book for the workplace, which I'll share at the end so you can it's phenomenal. So really and truly, there are 4 different languages that we can use in the workplace. The 5th one is touch. And I don't really recommend some of those ideas in the workplace, but in the book, they do talk about how if somebody has the primary language of touch, how you can connect with them. So you've got words of appreciation or words of affirmation. Those are the type of people who, when they're showing appreciation to somebody, anybody in their life, they are going to say it or they are going to write it. I'm words. So I'm going to show my love and appreciation for people through a meaningful note or an email, or I might email them and copy their boss so they can see that. You want to watch out for your people and their style, because once you know their style, you can start talking to them in their language. Oh, sorry, I just hit my mouse. In their language. People tend to show appreciation in their own language that they prefer. But we don't necessarily think about the fact that what does the person we're talking to prefer? So we need to know and understand all those styles. Quality time. These are the people on your team who want to spend time with the boss. They want to go to lunch with you. They want to be asked to go to a networking event. They might want you to stop by their desk and have this great conversation about the strategic meeting. They want to know things. They want your time, quality time. Acts of service. These are people who show appreciation by doing things for others. They might bring you a coffee or make the coffee when they see that it's done, or run out and get you lunch because they know that you don't have time to go do that today. They might help you on a project or help the team on a project. They're always doing things for other people. And then you have gifts. And these people, they are about gifts, but it's not necessarily about the gift itself. It's about the fact that somebody thought of them enough for a gift. So this is somebody who really appreciates flowers, or they might appreciate, a little trinket that you bring back from your trip, those kinds of people. Gifts is my least favorable love language. So I can't stand flowers, and my husband loves that. He's like, great, I don't have to spend money, but I see it as, just this big waste of money, and it means nothing to me because anybody can get online and type in a credit card. I'm words and I'm touch. So if you know your people, you can really connect with them. My boss, Paul, is service. And for years, we struggled on how to connect with one another, just in our daily interactions. And once we realized what each other's language of appreciation are, he learned the hard way that I'm super outgoing, like off the charts outgoing. So he thought that I would really love to be pulled up in front of a big group and acknowledged, and I don't. I get mortified. I would rather have him send me a nice text or something of that nature. So we really had to learn each other's styles. He's somebody who's going to do something for me. He might break down a hurdle for me. He might help my career, connect me with somebody. He's called me before and said, hey, I'm throwing out this lawn furniture. Do you want it? And I'm like, heck yes, because Paul throws out the greatest stuff. But then he tried to learn my language, and he is a very short but sweet responder. Like, he'll respond in email and sometimes hurt people's feelings. But he knows he can say, great job. And if he puts an exclamation point and a smiley face, that I know that's not his style, and I appreciate that. One time we got in a big fight, and he was wrong, of course. And he emailed me about 5 hours later, and all it said was, I'm sorry, exclamation point, smiley face. And I still have it. It means the world to me. So if you can learn these, this is a phenomenal way to connect with people.
Hey, Lara. Real quick, there's some talk on the chat from Carl. Carl asks, how often do you find that people are self-aware to knowing their language, and what are some tips you have on helping coach your people identify that, or what are some tools that leaders can do to kind of subtly learn those languages?
That's a really good question, Carl. And it took me, a year or so of watching people. I'm an observer. So I watch those people, and I know what they do when they're showing me any kind of appreciation or showing me something. So I take a lot of notes. I use Outlook, and I use an app for note taking, and I keep notes on people. So I know exactly what drink they want at Starbucks. I know that I'll put their language in there if I know exactly what it is. I know their family, their kids, what's going on in their lives. I make sure that I write it down. And it takes observing. It takes first knowing them. So I'm going to show you what the book is. It's a super easy read. It's a lot of fun to start to analyze people. But walking around and watching them, if somebody brings you a coffee, that's where you go, they might be a service. They might be gifts. So I take a lot of notes and observe them. It's also a great training. So if you want to do like a book club with your leaders and read the book and then talk about it, and maybe have them slot all their people where they think they are. And, there's nothing wrong with talking to them as well and finding out a little bit more about what motivates them.
Yeah, thanks. Because when you showed the original screen of giving people a survey and saying, how would you like to be recognized or whatever, I could imagine that the initial response to that, especially for somebody that's new to the organization, is, I don't know why they're asking this question. It makes me nervous and I don't really know.
Yeah. Well, we talk about it ahead of time. So in new hire orientation, before they even get their new hire paperwork, I go over, they spend a day with me on culture. So I talk about why we want to know and how we're a culture of appreciation. And a lot of times I tell them to really think about it too, because a lot of times somebody might think they're one and they might be another. I set up a meeting for somebody who'd worked for us for like 20 years to go to lunch with Paul and his brother Barry. And she came into my office and said, I will throw up if I have to go to lunch with them alone. And I was just shocked. I thought, oh my gosh, she's known them for 20 years. Why does she feel this way? And it turns out she didn't want to be with them alone. She didn't know what to say. So sometimes they'll tell you, but a lot of times you have to really watch and observe the undercurrent yourself.
I was wondering as to who actually fills it out. And obviously now I know it's the employee, or the new employee, then who actually gets that form? Is it their direct supervisor? Is it just go into the personnel file? Who actually gets that, and who? Because the recognition can come from all over the company. Right. It doesn't necessarily have to come from a direct supervisor.
Well, I highly recommend it doesn't go in the HR file, because being from HR myself, I know that can be the file of death. Like you never see it again. If it's it could be the direct supervisor. In our case, all I did for the company was culture. So I owned culture and I kept a lot of it. And we worked on a lot of recognition together with, directors and managers, et cetera. So I'd make a copy for the direct manager and I'd give it to them, and then I kept a copy. So whatever works for your logistics, but I highly recommend it's not HR file. For a legal reason. You don't want all those things in a file about their kids and their family and anything that the court could see as something we could be discriminatory against. So, but I use these constantly. It was really helpful. Okay, so when we're giving recognition, it's important to be extremely detailed. People want to know that we know what they did to deserve recognition. And we're not just saying thanks for a great job and carrying on. So we need to become great storytellers. We need to master a storytelling kind of mindset. So when we're sitting down to write a recognition, or we're going into a town hall to say something in front of everyone, or we're doing a conference call or anything, think through who deserves a recognition. Who are the characters of the story? What was the problem? What did they do what did they resolve? What actions did they take to resolve it, and the context around the behavior? And then what surprises did they do? What happened in the story that they surprised you with? The outcome, which is the result, and then a core value or a goal they represented. So when we're talking about Casey at the beginning, we can incorporate all these things into a quick recognition for her, and it doesn't have to be a lot of effort, but a few more sentences besides "great job, Casey." It might take a couple more seconds, but it's gonna go miles for your return of investment on somebody. So I've got a lot of story starters here for you guys, and several slides worth. But if you start with some of these, it's going to make you think through the story and how to make it better. So you got my attention by, going the extra mile and take an initiative to do da-da-da-da-da, and it really made an impact by blank. You can be proud of yourself for, or one of the things I love working about you is, so it'll help you to craft things that are a little bit more personalized and different from one another, because nobody wants to see, oh, he said the same thing to me too. They want it to be different and personalized. Here are a few others. You exceeded all my expectations with blank, and I look forward to working with you on the next project. Your ability to accommodate even when it wasn't easy or convenient shows the one team, one goal attitude. One team, one goal is one of our core values at the company that I'm with now. So we incorporate those core values into any discussion. So starting off with some detail like this will really help to finish up your story. And this just made me laugh because I've worked for this kind of a boss, and if they don't have a clue what you're doing, then it's not meaningful. I had a boss that wrote on my paycheck, this was back when we got actual paychecks, "Great job, Lara," and I knew she had absolutely no idea what I did on a regular basis, so it didn't really mean much of anything. So I just wanted to pop this in and share with you guys. So let's talk about some things that you can really use and things that I do on a daily basis. So right now I am in another role for the company that is strictly culture. So we work on ways to publicly or any other way that somebody prefers recognize people. So the top left-hand side here is, these are called CARES cards. And at Paul's company, it was Barrel Cares. And we went to Stericycle, we switched it to SteriCares. And these cards, every manager in the company has some of these cards, and we train them on how to use these so they don't overkill. You don't want to get 4 of these in your mailbox a month. That totally defeats the purpose. But what we do is we utilize these for sending a message in the mail to a team member that's been through some sort of adversity or a celebration, or their family's gone through a celebration. So I literally will notify the manager that needs to send this out. Usually it's our CEO, usually it's Paul, our Chief Culture Officer, and some other C-suite personnel that really needs to identify or to address this employee. And they will just personally write. It doesn't have to be long. So you can see Paul's not a lot of about words, but they got something from the CEO. They're blown away. So and Charlie is the CEO of 25,000 team member company, but I will email him something and say, "Hey, so-and-so's dog died." And he jumps on it. And we'll write a card really quickly. I send the address. I send everything he needs to know. He has cards and stamps, and he pops it in the mail. We get more ROI from these cards than we do a lot of other recognition. When my daughter was in the 6th grade, I worked for Paul, and that was back when we didn't have the ability to take computers home. So I had to be in the office to work, and I worked a lot, and I was a single mom at the time, and I was working on a project that took about 3 months of long hours. And one day I go to the mail, and I noticed there is a card addressed to her, and I recognized Paul's handwriting. And so she opens it, and it said, I just wanted to let you know what your mom has done for our company over the past 3 months. She's done blank, 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 and blank. And we appreciate her, and she's made such a difference. So thank you for lending her us for a few months. She is 26 now and still has that card on her bulletin board and knows him well, and it's very meaningful. He's bought me things. He's given me monetary things, and that means more to me than anything. We have over here in the bottom left-hand corner, every single month, we give away a parking lot spot that is labeled for each core value. So this is a parking lot spot for passion for customer service. And Jason got this spot for the month. So if he did something phenomenal in the area of passion for customer service, then he gets to park here every single day for a month. And it's right by the front door, and it's super convenient. So we had 6 of them. Then once a quarter at our town hall, we would do a drawing for every core value. So people who had received certificates for core values, we put them in a bowl and we did a drawing. Whoever won got a $250 prize of their choice. Now this is monetary, and this was the one area where we did something that was monetary for recognition. They could not pick cash. It had to be something that they wanted and couldn't necessarily get themselves. So, in a call center, our people, are in budgets, and $250 might be a lot for them. So over the years, I purchased cowboy boots and wood floor and tattoos and washer and dryers and purses, you name it. I would go out and I'd get it for them. And then we would advertise what they won and what they did to achieve it. We have a Facebook page for Scary Culture, and we post a lot of things out there. We post anniversaries, we post recognition, and people love that. We start every big group meeting with kudos. So we'll just pipe up for about 5 minutes and say, who has kudos to share? And people will share, they'll stand up and share or talk, if it's a conference call, what people did to make a difference to them since the last meeting. And it's just really meaningful to people. Some other ways to create a culture of appreciation is all of these are they're not tangible. They're things that you have to stop and calendar and do. If it's possible, learn all the names of the people you interact with regularly. And if you don't, if you're too big, make sure that you can utilize someone who knows all of those people. So a manager or somebody in a culture role or HR role can feed you information. One of the things that I did for years and years and years for Paul, it was a secret, now I'm sharing it. It's kind of like the man behind the emerald curtain for the Wizard of Oz, was he would send anniversary cards every month to team members. And he wrote personal things in there, like, hey, I heard you just got braces. Come by and show me your smile. And people were blown away that they knew that. Well, I had this spreadsheet of everybody, and I would plug in everything I knew about them, and I would forward that month's anniversaries over to him with notes in the column next to their name, so he could make it really personable. So if you have somebody that knows people, have them feed you information. It's a great way to connect. Keep a journal or notes on people. I talked about that. Another thing that is a really big habit of Paul and Charlie and some of our C-suite is they'll call somebody at home. Same way, behind the scenes, I'm emailing them to let them know something happened, and I'll give a phone number, and I'll say, hey, they'd appreciate a call. So it works really, really well. Talked about sending anniversary notes home, and we do that on a regular basis and make sure that they've got that is really personable. Hold on a second. I turned off my phone, but I forgot my iPad rings. And create a communication vehicle for sharing accomplishments. We put out on our intranet a way for people to share really quickly with me something that's going on with somebody, an accomplishment or an adversity. Tell them when you hear a positive comment from a client or customer. One of the things that I loved to do was if I was walking around a client to do a tour of Beryl Health and I saw somebody on the call center floor, I would stop them and say, hey, I just heard you had this great call about so-and-so. And I would do it right in front of our guests so they would feel super important. So that's the introduce and brag them. Take them to an event if you think that they might enjoy that. Provide top performers with a mentor from the leadership team or a mentor from the area that they're the most interested in. And one of my favorites is call them to your office for no reason whatsoever but to thank them, because they're going to think it's something totally different. And they sit down, and if you stop and look at them and say, I heard about what you did. It blew me away. I just wanted to say thank you. This is what you've done. And that's really impactful to them, and it's gonna go a long, long way. And then schedule calendar time to walk around. I know we've heard this before, and if you're not exceptionally outgoing, I am. So if I sit at if I sit at my desk for several hours, I'm dying to get up and walk around. But those who aren't, if you put it on your calendar for 30 minutes to walk around and see what you observe, or just stop by somebody's desk, make notes of what's in their office. One of the things that meant the most to me was my office is floor to ceiling Bon Jovi memorabilia. I'm aging myself. I mean, everywhere. And although my boss doesn't understand it, like he thought it was Arnold Schwarzenegger at first, I was just mortified. One day he called me out of a meeting and gave me Bon Jovi tickets to the concert to recognize me for something. And it just meant the world to me because I knew he absolutely didn't even really know who he was. So pay attention to what's in their office, what's in their cubes, and write it down because it'll come in handy. These are some of the, I guess, materials that we've used or that I've used in the past for recognition programs. I've been a part of 3 attempts to implement the recognition program that's online where you earn points and cash those points in for prizes. All 3 times they've flopped. And we've gotten and it's big company, small company. So we've received feedback, and most people tell us they want the location. They want location recognition from people right there on site. They don't want to see it online. If they earn points for something and cash them in, nobody knows it but them. So it just really wasn't all that meaningful. And now I'm watching our safety team implement the same kind of an online recognition for being safe program. And it's doing the same thing. It's people aren't logging in. It's not making that impact. So what I've seen work the most in the past are utilizing very simple ways to connect. And these are all materials from a peer-to-peer recognition program. So if you train team members or employees to know and understand what deserves recognition, and I've always done that in new hire orientation, and how to do it, how to write it, just like what we're talking about now, and then how to connect it to a core value, they can recognize their peers as well. It's important to have somebody in a managerial role who is administering it, because I do a lot of kicking things back and saying, this is really great. It's sweet that somebody brought you a Coke from the break room, but that's more of a just, hey, thanks, instead of an over and above and beyond recognition. So, and then there's a lot of ways people can start to cheat a program. So these are just simple slips. They talk about what core value that person represented, and they're distributed to that team member, but they're also displayed somewhere within the location. Right now, I've got about 500 locations across the country, starting to be UK and Canada as well, but we have a culture ambassador at each site, and they take the time to figure out what's going to be the most meaningful for their location. Is it a bulletin board? Do they do a drawing? Some of them have a wheel where they spin a wheel of everybody who's received a certificate. They just do all kinds of different things with it. So this has been successful, kind of old school recognition, or writing on a piece of paper, or turning it in, or submitting it through email, and not the real formal, I'm going to say Terry Berry, but I'm not picking on them. That's the program that I know the most, online programs. And if you've got one that's worked, that is phenomenal. I'm glad. I am not bashing it, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. So let's look again at Casey, and how can we make that story better? Does anybody want to take a shot at making the recognition better for what she did for the RFP? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but if you're outgoing, take a shot. So what if you are Casey and I said to you, "Oh, great job, Casey, thanks." And I go in my office. Or what if I said something like this? "Casey, I just heard what a huge mistake I made on the proposal that you took initiative to stay late and fix it. This is one of the many reasons why I know I can trust you with anything that I put in your hands. You always go the extra mile and you put quality into everything that you do. You saved this proposal and potentially the company from losing a lot of money. Thank you so much for having our back and for representing one team, one goal. Why don't you take off an hour early today?" It takes us a little bit extra, but it makes a huge difference. So these are my 4 favorite books over the past 25 years of doing recognition, HR, and culture. They are really great, easy to read, wonderful book club books. So the one on the very right is the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. And I promise if you learn those and learn how to pick up on those, it's going to help you with your spouse or your partner or anybody. Carrots and sticks don't work. It talks all about how you can dangle tangible things in front of people, but it's not necessarily going to motivate them and impact your employee engagement. How full is your bucket is really a concept about every interaction you have with somebody either dips out of their bucket because it's a negative interaction or fills their bucket. And if it's too many negative interactions, eventually you're not going to have anything left in the bucket and they're going to quit and leave you. It's super easy to read as well. I absolutely love these guys. And I read a lot of books. Paul makes us read constantly. So these are my favorites. And that's really it. But this is my motto. I use it all the time. It's in my office. And if you can remember this, if somebody walks away from you feeling like the most important person in the world, they walk in, you lock your computer so you're not looking at it, you don't pick up your phone, and you listen to them and you empathize with them, and just give them all of your attention, and you make them feel special, that is going to be the one thing that creates a lot of loyalty in them and return an investment in them. And I can talk about that forever, all different ways to create that loyalty. But if you can make them feel phenomenal, that's the first start. So that's really all I've got. I can give you more details or anything like that. Does anybody have any questions, or do you have a phenomenal recognition thing that you share or that you want to share?
I do have a question.
Go for it.
So, like the guy with the parking place who, because he, I think he's Jared was his name. Did you say?
Yeah, Jason. Mm-hmm.
Jason. So he's got a parking place now, and for a month or a week or whatever long it is, because he did something extraordinary that somebody else recognized him for. How do the other 10 or 12 people in that department feel? Say, I came to work, I did all my stuff really well as well, yet he was recognized over and above me for doing my job just as well as him. Do you find this any kind of